Did you correctly answer true? Originally marketed as a way to quit smoking, research now shows that teens who use e-cigarettes are actually 7 times more likely to smoke actual cigarettes. We're going to continue our discussion now and focus more on both the risks and efforts to reduce student use of e-cigarettes. We've got Dr. Susan Kansagra. She is the Section Chief for Chronic Disease and Injury at North Carolina Division of Public Health. Next to her, Brian Gendenning. Brian is the Senior Administrator for Healthful Living, Wake County Public Schools. So thank you both for being here. Obviously, you were aware of the lawsuit last week, and you just heard the Attorney General. I want to start with you, Dr. Kansagra. Vaping has been promoted as a safe alternative to smoking cigarettes. Is it?
It's not. And, I want to talk about that use of the word safe. It is not safe. E-cigarettes have harms. And I know many times there is a misconception that there is harmless water vapor in e-cigarettes, and that's absolutely not true. Particularly if you look at youth risks of using e-cigarettes, Surgeon General put out, an over 250-page report about some of the health impacts, and there are numerous health impacts that we already know. For example, they increase the likelihood of mood disorders, they decrease impulse control, and they affect the parts of the brain that are responsible for attention and learning. So they have very real health risks for our youth.
Yeah, one of the things that I saw, and I think we're going to pull up some of these on the screen, that daily e-cigarette users have twice the risk of a heart attack, and that's according to the American Journal of Preventive Medicine. They also mentioned there's some DNA damaging chemicals in saliva from using these products that can cause oral cancer. I mean, again, I came into this really not knowing a lot about this product, other than I was kind of like a lot of people. I bet maybe some of our viewers, it's water vapor,
yeah.
And it's not like firing up a Camel unfiltered, right? But it's there's some. What are the biggest risks, and are the risks different for middle and high school students versus, say, people in their 20s and 30s?
Yeah, so, some of the risks, in addition to some of the things I've already mentioned, the chemicals in cigarettes themselves cause risks. So, for example, e-cigarettes have been found to contain benzene, which is commonly found in car exhaust. It also has heavy metals in it, like nickel, tin, lead. And there's also very fine particles that when you inhale an e-cigarette gets very deep into the lungs, and those particles have also been shown to cause damage to the lungs. So those are really real risks. And in addition to those inherent risks, we know, as you mentioned, that e-cigarettes also increase your likelihood of using other tobacco products, so combustible tobacco products, and we already know the health impact of that as one of the leading causes of preventable death. And not only just combustible tobacco products, actually in the Surgeon General's report, they're also showing research now that it really primes the brain for addiction to other things, like even cocaine. So obviously lots of health risks.
Brian, I want to go to you. Largest school district in the state. You've heard the numbers. What are you seeing in Wake schools in terms of use? Are you mirroring the national trend in terms of big spikes in usage among middle and high school students?
So we don't have that local data at this point. That is still something that we will get over the next year or two and in the coming years. What we do have is North Carolina data. And from my standpoint as a school administrator in charge of health education, over the last 7 years when I've been doing this job, I have not received as many student calls, parent calls, school administrator calls saying, this is a major issue in our school and we need some help educating students. What can we do, and what are some things that we can put in place? And we cover all health topics and health education, and this has been really a hot button, particularly in the last 2 years.
Well, when talking to teachers, it's like I was in a teacher's classroom recently. A lot of teachers, they always have their drawer of all the things that they take away from students during the day. I mean, now they're full of these these little jewels. What is the official policy of Wake in terms of the use or even having them on you? Because let's remember, it may sound quaint, but it is illegal to sell these products to someone under 18, but they're all over middle and high school. So I mean, is it a punishable offense in Wake County to even have one on you?
It's a punishable offense because it's a tobacco product. So we've, I think it was in June of 2018, they included in our student code of conduct the actual words e-cigarettes in that policy for student code of conduct. So it's considered a level 1, which is kind of the lowest level behavioral offense that a student can have in a school. So it's a school-based decision on how they would handle a lot of that. If it becomes habitual, they have some greater ways of punishing kids, but from my perspective as an educator, I want to get in front of it before we get to a point of having kids get punished for using. We want to make sure that kids have the right tools to understand exactly what it is that's going in their bodies and exactly what's going on and how it's being communicated to our
Well,
youth.
and let's get to that point about education, because you've done there's been a lot of students who are using these, there's a huge increase in usage. They don't really understand nicotine, or even what it is, or that they're even intaking that.
Yeah, there is this misconception, again, that they feel that these are harmless and they have water vapor, and that's simply not true. And if you look at the state data, we've seen a 900% increase over a span of 6 years. And there's few things that you see increase that rapidly. And as a public health official, I don't use the term epidemic lightly, but this is certainly one of those things where we are seeing an epidemic of e-cigarette use among youth. And some of the policies that we have in place at a state level, just to add on to some of the things Brian mentioned, we have a tobacco-free schools policy in North Carolina, so grounds are supposed to be smoke-free. There are certain educational programs that we support and promote that meet standards for educating our youth, and also parents and teachers around these products and what they contain. So, certainly, yes, there is this misconception, but that is simply not true.
Well, and I guess we have a lot of parents that watch this show, and teachers. So parents, from your view, should look at these Juuls, these e-cigarettes, no differently than they look at cigarettes in terms of being a tobacco product?
Yeah, and in fact, the data is showing that if you use e-cigarettes, it increases your likelihood of using actually combustible tobacco products as well. And so I think for both there's reasons, not just the inherent risk of the e-cigarette, but also the risk of transitioning to combustible tobacco products and facing a lifetime of nicotine addiction. I think there's a really real concern that parents should have about youth use of e-cigarettes.
So what are y'all doing in Wake County schools, Brian, to educate students? Look, I have an 18-year-old. They know how to eye roll. Do they believe? Do they listen to just your normal education programs about this?
It's a fine line to walk. So I think that a teenager's ability to sniff out something that doesn't seem like the complete factual evidence for something is very high. So we like to try to make sure that we represent everything with something that is either a CDC or Department of Health and Human Services, or something that is scientifically based information when it's in the classroom. One thing that we've been able to find is we have a lot of student advocates in high schools across our school district, and they have been very vocal. They've gone to our school board, they've come to our school health advisory council meetings. They are interested in their own personal health and the health of their peers, and I think that using them as a sounding board and allowing them to create public services in their school and beyond their school is a really important piece to this. It's not just a classroom piece. It needs to start in the classroom, but these things are happening beyond a school building as well. We want to make sure we're protecting kids.
Quickly, last word from you, Dr. Kansagra. Is this a health crisis among students?
It is a health crisis, and as I said, I don't use the term epidemic lightly, and this is an epidemic. That lifetime of nicotine addiction carries very real risks, and we have really outdone 3 to 4 decades of tobacco prevention in the span of a few years. And so, we're already behind, and we really need to be out front.
Great, very good. Well, thank you both for being here, helping us understand. I learned a lot. I hope our viewers did too, and we're going to continue to watch and to watch the lawsuit, but also what's happening here at the state. So thanks so much.
Great, thank you.
After the break, this week's final word.